5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to Westchester Jewish Community Services. As a leading agency in providing a comprehensive spectrum of human services, we have been helping people since 1943. We serve all people in Westchester County, regardless of age, income, or ethnicity. We provide a wide variety of essential and dynamic services that make a difference in people's lives. Children, teens, adults, and senior citizens are served by our network of programs located throughout the county. When people come to us for assistance, they become part of the WJCS family. Our highly trained and skilled staff focus on you and your family and are committed to becoming your partner in finding solutions. For more than half a century, we have been connecting people to services that help them overcome mental, physical, or emotional challenges. WJCS is here in your community when you need us.
Hello, and welcome to today's show brought to you by Westchester Jewish Community Services. We are in your community when you need us. The program is The Ways We Care, and WJCS is the largest human services agency in Westchester County, serving over 13,000 residents annually. We are funded by government agencies, the United Way, UJA, and private individuals. I'm Merrill Lewis, and I'm the coordinator of volunteers at the agency. Today's topic is You Are Not Alone, and we're going to celebrate today the 25th anniversary of the Westchester Self-Help Clearinghouse. Before we begin interviewing our guests, I would like to quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who aptly describes what the clearinghouse is all about. He said, "It is one of the beautiful compensations of this life that none can sincerely help another without helping himself." With that, I would like to turn to Lenore Rosenbaum, who is the director of the Self-Help Clearinghouse. Thank you for coming on, Lenore.
Thank you, Merrill.
Dr. Chuck Benjamin, who is the member of the Westchester Men's Support Group.
Yes,
thank you.
Hello.
And Sue Goldstein of the Westchester Celiac Sprue Support Group. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Lenore, let's start with you. I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of the clearinghouse, when it started, how it started, who started it, etc. If you could give us a little bit of information.
Well, as you mentioned, it's coming upon our 25th anniversary. It was in the fall of 1979, and it was through a vision that Leslie Bork Jemison had, and it was in concurrence with Mr. Aronowitz, who was in the mental health field, Gene Aronowitz. And Leslie really believed that there was a place in this county for bringing together all of the support groups under one umbrella so that people had one telephone number that they could call for information. And that was really the birth of the Self-Help Clearinghouse in a closet, practically, at Pace University. And here we are, 25 years later. Of course, there had been many shiftings in terms of where the clearinghouse was located, and then the clearinghouse became a program of Westchester Jewish Community Services about 20 years ago.
About 20 years ago?
About 20 years ago. Just before I got here, which is 19 years ago. And I can hardly believe that. Yes.
Right, right.
So throughout the years, we had a large staff, and then we had financial difficulties because we really depend on funding from private agencies and government and outside support. There is no charge for our services. So our staff dwindled, and through a series of circumstances, I became the director about 11 years ago, and we are now in WJCS headquarters in North White Plains.
Right next door.
We have evolved
from
my
neighbor.
White Plains, Hartsdale, the Westchester Community College, and now at headquarters in White Plains.
So let me, for those people who were watching, who were looking in and thinking, you know, well, do I need a support group? Maybe I'd like to join a support group. How does it, how do people tune into your support groups? How do they get in contact with you? What if there is a support group that you don't have, that someone wants to start? Would you help them to start a support group?
Okay, I think I'll start with the earlier part of your question.
Right.
How do people know about us? One of the things that we are very proud of is the fact that in these 25 years we have become known throughout the county. We are in the libraries, our information gets into the newspapers. We publish a directory of support groups, which is a compendium of all the support groups that we are aware of and that have checked with in Westchester County. This is 2003 and 4, and there are over 280 groups in here. And we will be doing another directory, the 15th edition, in 2005, next year.
It comes out every 2 years.
Comes out
It's
every 2 years.
revised every 2
Right.
years.
So people get to know about us. Therapists, professional people, social workers, hospitals, doctors, they know about the clearinghouse. And when they feel that it's appropriate, they can suggest to one of their patients who might have diabetes and say, well, you know, there are people like you, and you may feel alone. Why don't you call the clearinghouse and, you know, check into a diabetes support group? Or as in Sue's case, when she came all those 12 years ago or so with celiac sprue, I barely had heard of it, but there wasn't a group, and Sue had called. And so we have people come in, we have a consultation, and we help people get started. So if a group does not exist, then we will ask people to come in and we will help them to start a group.
So it's amazing. With 280 groups, one would think that you've got them all. You've got something for everyone.
No, there is always something more to be added for everyone. It's really amazing how far and wide and the variety of topics that you would find in here. And also how far and wide people have heard about us. I think the most gratifying and unusual situation was to receive a call from Australia. A young man was moving. He was with a large company, and he knew that he was coming to Westchester. So he had already done some legwork because he had a child that had special needs. So he wanted to become connected, and he called from Australia.
Wow, what a terrific...
And that was absolutely phenomenal, and we were able to give him some help in terms of some groups that would help him with his child.
What a way to be able to connect.
So, I mean, there are clearinghouses throughout the country, throughout the world, and we're all kind of connected with each other. So if people in Westchester are moving elsewhere, we will certainly help them to connect to a new area.
Well, let's talk to two of our volunteers who are in support groups and find out a little bit about their support groups. Chuck, what is the name of your group, when did you join your group?
The group is the Westchester Men's Support Group, and we've been meeting every other week now for about 20 years. We go way back.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we meet in the Scarsdale Congregational Church on every other Monday, and the group is a very stable group, a very unusual group in that it's very stable. The group has 9 members, and we began with the idea of being a support group that would be leaderless, and we continue that way.
So there is no facilitator?
No.
You were sort of explaining to me how it starts, you know, just
right.
as
Give us an
yeah,
idea
yeah.
of coming together and who starts and...
Well, what happens is, you know, as the members show up, you know, we unfold the folding chairs and sit down and you know, do social greeting. As soon as everybody's in place, we say, who needs some time tonight? And then we have an idea of how many people have issues, you know, they particularly need time to talk about. And we meet from 8 to 10:30, so we have 2.5 hours. And no, I'm sorry, let me correct that. We meet from 8 to 10. We have 2 hours. And so we try to divide up the time so everybody will have a chance to talk. If there's no major issues or not many, we'll then say, let's go around. Everybody take 5 or 10 minutes and you know, talk about what you want to talk about. So that's how we get started.
It's interesting. I mean, with a group of men, are these individuals having a particular crisis? Is it, what brought them together in the first place?
I think that all of the men in the group have had some considerable experience with therapy. These are men who have, considerable insight and really want to understand themselves. Long before they've joined the group, they've been doing this, and they kind of want an opportunity to talk to a group of men and get a chance to talk about whatever's really personal. Our sense of privacy is very, very important to us because everybody is very open, and the commitment to the group is it turns out it's long term. Most of the people stay in this group for a few years. We have a turnover about maybe one person a year. So
That's amazing for a
it
support
really is.
group.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing worth mentioning is that when you do join a support group, privacy and confidentiality is whatever is said in that room never leaves, and all members of a support group do understand that.
Absolutely. I mean, in the training, we always stress that. That is the primary thing to stress, and that is confidentiality. And that builds trust, and it takes a while to build trust.
Yeah.
People just don't walk in and open up. If a woman walks into a group and she just has been diagnosed with breast cancer, she may want to listen and hear the kinds of things that other women are talking about until she feels comfortable in opening up. And we see that happening. They could sit there for 2 or 3 group times or more until a person feels comfortable. But at least they know that there is this instant bonding. Everybody else in the room is sharing that experience, whatever it is.
True, true. Sue, you have a celiac sprue support group. Tell me a little bit about how that started and how many members you had at first when you first started and how you got started.
We started actually in 1992. I had been diagnosed with celiac disease in 1991, and I was looking for a group to join. And I discovered there was not a group to join in the area. So I decided I would start a group. And I did call the Self-Help Clearinghouse and learned that they were starting some training sessions. So I went and I went to the training sessions with Lenore and learned how to found a group, how to start a group, techniques to run the group. We began meeting in my home. There were 9 people initially.
Okay.
And today we're about 500 people. So
It's just dazzling.
right.
Mind-boggling.
It
really.
is mind-boggling to me. I certainly didn't expect when we started with 9 in my living room, and of course we're not in my living room now, but it grew just very, very rapidly. So there was a need for it.
The need was definitely there. For those people watching, who do not know what celiac sprue disease is, can you talk a little bit about that? What are some
Sure.
of the symptoms, how it's diagnosed?
Right. Celiac disease is a genetic disease, so it runs in families. It's an autoimmune disease, which means the body is attacking itself. And in the case of celiac disease, the primary target is the small intestine. However, it's a multi-system disease because it is very broad in the range of presentation of symptoms and very broad in its complications that can present. Diagnosis would seem not to be that difficult, but we know that on an average it can take 11 years for a person to get diagnosed because physicians had not been very aware of it. I think things are improving. As far as presentation goes, it could be very varied. It could be someone might present with gastrointestinal symptoms. They might have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, and it might be celiac disease. They may have joint aches and pains. They may have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and it might be celiac disease as well.
Chuck, it's very interesting in looking at the groups that most of the groups seem to be run by women. And I'm just curious as to what you owe the success and longevity of your group, which is all men.
I think It's the making it clear from the first time we meet, the first interview, that this is really a group where people have to be very open because that's the nature of the group, and they have to be ready to make a real commitment because it's a long-term group. And we really say to people, take your time and think about it. I don't think there's ever been a time in the 20 years when something has come up and somebody said, no, I don't want to talk about it. It has never happened. And I used to kid about, we don't talk about sports, but I think we did once. And, it's not what this just the typical stereotype of men's group is like. It's a very, very intimate group.
Well, let me understand. I guess different groups work differently. Some groups, one person talks and everyone listens. Other groups are more interactive, where one person talks and other people give advice or suggestions or give their take on whatever the issue is. Other groups are really information sharing. So tell me, in your group, which category would yours fit into?
Probably the group where you're most likely to get feedback. The people are going to tell you what they think and give an opinion. And what I've always liked about it is, of the 9 men who are in the group, you're going to get at least 4 opinions. And truly, and well thought out, and and you can say, well, okay, I can see this side and I can see that side. And, usually you'll have an opportunity to say, maybe I've decided I'm going to go this way, but I know there's another side to this, or maybe I'm going to come back and change my mind.
I think that's very interesting, the comment that Chuck just made, because we always stress in our training, groups are not advice-giving opportunities. They're options that are being offered by other people in the group. And just as you say, you have 4 different opinions, 4 different guys, and then it's up to the person to choose. But nobody says you should do this or you should not do that. It's really left to the individual to choose. But it's wonderful to have the opportunity to have different kinds of thinking that you probably never thought of yourself.
Right.
And in Sue's group, there's a lot of information that has to be imparted. There are so many things that are happening in the medical field, in the nutrition field, that impact on your group.
Right.
So it's a different kind of thing. But what you said is really so important. You don't give advice, you give options and let people decide for themselves.
We're going to do this twice so that the viewers have plenty of time to copy down the numbers. Chuck, if someone wanted to join the men's group, would they get in touch directly with you?
Yeah, I'm usually the person that is the easiest to contact. I'm retired and I'm around.
Okay.
Right.
And what are the age ranges, by the way, in your group?
Well, because the group's been around for 20 years, we all got
20 years older.
How'd that happen?
Right, So, we probably, when we came in, we were in the mid-40s, now we're in the mid-60s, 70s. But most of the original members have retired, and moved on. So most of the new people come in at around age 40.
Okay.
We find that's the people who want this kind of a group, and so we have at least half of the group in that age bracket now.
Okay, so
40s,
sort of
late 40s, 50s.
So from early 40s to
70s.
To
70s, yeah.
to 70s. Interesting. And that's right. So people would be coming at things very differently.
Right.
Someone 70 looking at an issue or problem would probably have a very different take on it than someone 40 looking at the same
For
issue.
sure, right.
So that has to be very worthwhile
Yep.
to hear those different vantage points. Now, would you give the viewers your telephone number?
Sure.
Or your email address, how they get in
Okay.
touch with you?
Right. I'm pretty sure it's in the directory, but my phone number is 914-332-9494.
Are you on the internet?
I do have an email address, yeah,
Okay.
which is it's Chaz1, CHASONE which I sometimes pronounce Chazone.
Right, Chazone.
Right. And then it's USA.
This is all one,
all
Chazone
one,
USA.
right, at AOL.com.
At AOL.
No, I'm sorry, no, it's not. It's at Yahoo.com.
At yahoo.com.
Right.
All right, because a lot of people today use the internet
Right, at
pretty
Yahoo.
exclusively.
Right.
And Sue, again, let's give your information and where people could contact you.
They could email our group at info, which is info, at westchesterceliacs.org. And I'd also like to give the website for information on celiac disease. There is now a celiac disease center at Columbia, and their web address is www.celiacdiseasecenter.columbia.edu.
Now, Sue, we didn't talk about where the group meets now. It's not no longer meeting in your living room.
No.
With
500 don't fit,
members.
right?
Right. Primarily we meet from September to March. We have rather structured meetings that are held at Phelps Memorial Hospital in Sleepy Hollow, New York. And we have various meetings in addition, less formal, kind of from March through the fall. We have a picnic where we're outside in a park. We have new member meetings in various places. We do telephone and email support as well. So we're meeting, and we have a newsletter. So we're kind of meeting in person, in different places, but also trying to keep contact with people through different arms of communication.
My goodness, it is quite a success story, and I have here some of your materials, the Celiac Spruce Support Group brochure, and something from Columbia University, the Celiac Disease Center, and in addition, the Westchester Celiac Spruce Support Group newsletter.
Correct.
So there's a tremendous amount of information. I see I'm getting the high sign that we're coming down to the end of our program. I'd like to go around one more time and see if you have any additional comments you would like to make or points you'd like to make again. Lenore?
Okay, again, I'm delighted that we're approaching 25 years in this day and age. Longevity is something to really appreciate, and it is really a salute to the people like Chuck and Sue who are giving of their time to be with others and to bring others together and to serve a very, very important role in the community. So I personally thank them for their longevity, their support, and their being there. And think of all the people that have been helped in your group and in your group. Men who have come and gone, and all of those hundreds of people who you're working with.
It's terrific. It's my ripple theory, right?
Yes.
Throw that pebble into the water and that ripple spreads out in all directions. 500 directions, 500 families you've affected. I don't know how many you've helped along the way, but I'm sure it's over a dozen.
Yeah, way over.
way over that,
dozen,
way over that,
over 20
right.
years.
Yeah, sure.
So that's really terrific. And I myself am very glad that the Westchester Self-Help Clearinghouse exists, because I am a facilitator also of a group and have also been a member of a group. So
And longevity as well.
and 9 years.
That's
so
right.
I can't think of, when people are desperate to get help, what a wonderful resource we have in the community where people can just pick up the phone, call, and know they're going to get help.
And
so,
no money is
and no money is involved.
Yeah.
So with that, we say thank you for watching, and goodbye from WJCS. Hello, welcome to The Ways We Care. I'm Merrill Lewis, and I'm Coordinator of Volunteers at WJCS. WJCS is the largest human services agency in Westchester County. We serve over 13,000 residents annually and have about 75 programs throughout the county. We are funded by government agencies, the United Way, private individuals, and the UJA. The topic of today's program is You Are Not Alone. And we are going to be celebrating 25 years, the 25th anniversary of the Westchester Self-Help Clearinghouse, which is one of our programs. Included in the Westchester Self-Help Clearinghouse is the Telephone Support Network. Now, I'd like to read a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which pretty much sums up what individuals who are involved and who we'll be interviewing today do. It is one of the beautiful compensations of this life that none of us can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. And today we have the pleasure of welcoming Karen Schweitzer. Karen is the program coordinator of the Telephone Network. Thank you for coming on, Karen. Shirley Blumberg, who is a phone buddy with the Widowed to Widowed program, part of the Telephone Network, and Roberta Apuzzo, a phone buddy also with the Divorced and Separated program. So let's start with Karen and talk a little bit about the history of the Phone Support Network.
This program started almost 20 years ago because we were getting a lot of phone calls from people who were saying, I wish there was just somebody that I could talk to who would truly understand the very, very difficult time I'm having. Because maybe because they've been there, but there must be people out there who honestly and truly understand how I feel. So we decided to give it a try and to recruit volunteers, first for the Widowed to Widowed Network, and see if it would be helpful to connect people on a one-to-one basis.
And let me just get this straight. This is strictly by phone. This is sort of an anonymous, people don't usually meet.
Usually not. Actually, they often do, but certainly the program is designed as a telephone support program. And that the purpose and the idea is that volunteers can offer the unique understanding and empathy and support because they've all been there themselves. All of our volunteers have been either widowed or divorced. So they know from their own experience how incredibly difficult this is and how important it is to be able to talk to somebody who understands.
And Shirley, you are obviously widowed. And how long have you been widowed?
10 years.
10 years. Did someone recommend you to this program? How did you get involved?
I actually got involved through Brandeis University Women. They called for volunteers, various groups, and when I read the list, I thought that would be something I could do, something I would be interested in, something obviously that they could train me to do, and they did. There is training involved.
Well, how long after your husband had passed away did you start as a phone volunteer?
2 years. 2 years after. About 1996.
And why did you feel the need to reach out?
When I became a widow, I tried a support group, and found that I did better on a one-to-one basis with someone, and that's what appealed to me. Because some people really feel more comfortable talking to one person, just one person instead of a group. And it was just something I wanted to do.
And how long have you been doing it?
Since 1996.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a long time.
And how many women have you spoken to in that time?
I couldn't give you a number. I think total maybe 15.
I would say something like
15
that.
Yeah,
women
at least
that you've
15,
helped through this very, very
Hopefully.
difficult transition. Very difficult transition. Well, let's talk a little bit with Roberta, who was a phone buddy in our Divorced and Separated program, and ask, first of all, how long you've been in the program, how long you've been a telephone buddy.
Since 1990.
Oh, so quite a long time.
Yes.
And what was the impetus for your becoming a phone buddy volunteer?
Well, I had been alone for a long time and had been living in Florida and came back to New York in 1990 and picked up the New York Times, which I missed so dearly.
You can get it in Florida.
Oh, not the same though. The Westchester section is not in
no,
there.
you can't get the Westchester, but you can buy the Times, though, anywhere you go.
But it was the Westchester section
Right.
that was the impetus that I read an article about the group and about the clearinghouse, and I thought, you know, I've got quite a few years' experience in the process of being divorced, and I wanted to reach out to other women who might have the same feelings that I went through. You know, I was, my children were very young. I was living out of state. I had friends, but not the kind of friends that I had here in New York. And very often friends are kind, but are a little bit judgmental. And being a phone buddy, in the training that we go through, you learn that that isn't the role of a phone buddy. A phone buddy is meant to someone to listen. And that is what we try to do.
And we talked about that. Karen talked about the training to me, and that, of course, listening skill, which so few people really do have. The listening skill is so important.
It's so important, and what we do with the primary purpose of the training classes actually is to practice listening skills, to practice refraining from saying, well, you really should or you really have to. And you know, it's so obvious, except that when it comes right down to it, it's not so easy. I think Shirley and Roberta would agree.
I guess it's much easier to just hear it and want to give advice.
That's what you don't do. You listen. You really learn to listen. And there are so many stages when someone loses a spouse. And as you talk to them, you really get to know where they're at, and primarily hold back. There are no shoulds. There are no you should do or you should do that. That's not our role. Our role is to listen and to mostly reassure them that what they're feeling is normal.
Well, what are some of the common themes that you've heard over and over again, perhaps at varying stages, with women who have lost their husbands?
Is it normal for me to want to shop all the time? Is it normal for me to be angry? Is it normal for me to burst into tears? You know, yes. I mean, it's yes. There are no rules for grieving, and everybody grieves differently. There are people who don't feel comfortable except in their own environment, in their own home, and that's their safety net. I go out, but I want to come back. And is that normal? Yes, it is normal for them.
Is there a window of time for grieving that if you're grieving longer than a certain period of time, then it becomes maybe you need more help?
Absolutely not.
Not?
No. I think
that's one of the myths. It really is that there is a time limit. And, you know, now it's been a year. It's time to get on with it. Frequently, in truth, the second year may be even harder than the first year, and there is no rule and no specific time frame or time limit. It's a life-changing experience.
This first person I spoke to was someone in her second year. She got through the first year, and then the second year was the hardest one. And I've heard that recently.
Was it because of the reality?
Maybe it's a reality check.
You're sort of in shock the first year, perhaps?
This is my life, and now I have to learn to live my life.
Without this person?
Without this person.
It's amazing. I mean, it must be very, very difficult to hear people who are so upset and so grief-stricken.
People in pain.
People in real pain.
Yeah.
In real pain. Well, I imagine you also hear people. I mean, obviously, it is another life transition, separated, divorced. And I think, what, the top 5 was, you know, losing a spouse, separation, divorce, losing your job. What's the other one? Moving, fear of public speaking.
Public speaking,
I think that comes before
That's
them all.
very high up.
That's right, it is. I think it's actually before death. But divorce and separation is a major transition, and especially when you have children and you have all the practical considerations. What are some of the issues that you encounter when you speak to, and it is women that you speak to?
Mostly I speak with women. And I guess in a lot of ways the grieving period is, you know, we can't say when you get over this grief. With death, there's a finality to it. With the divorce process, there may be a lot more anger attached to it with regards to having children and custody battles and financial battles that linger and linger and linger. And you very often find that anger stays with a lot of people for a very, very long time. And anger can be devastating to people. It doesn't allow you, it's an emotion that doesn't allow you, if you stay in it very long, to move on.
Right.
And to see some other things that can happen to you in your life. And very often, a lot of people stay stuck in that anger, and they can really get sick from it. And you see you physically see things change in you when you remain angry. Your whole body changes, your facial structure changes, you're not smiling enough, you're not taking care of yourself. There's just so many different things that happen. And can we say that there's a time? No. But I think that sometimes there's a suggestion that, you know, after a while, that you need to let go. You have to let go. You have to let go of the anger.
Our responses from people that we have connected with, our volunteers, have indicated over and over again how enormously helpful this is for them. He said, she always seemed to call at exactly the time when I really, really, really needed to talk to somebody. And nobody in my life truly understands the way she does. We have, by the way, made over 1,000 connections in the Widow Network, and close to 1,000 in the Separated Divorce Women's Connection, which was initiated about a year later. So
amazing. 2,000 lives that you've touched.
Exactly.
Positively. Positively.
Exactly.
I think, of course, when you have this unchecked anger, this toxic emotion which goes on for who knows how long, it has to have a spillover effect on your children.
Absolutely.
And probably makes the person very depressed.
And the children
herself.
very depressed. And then and everything seems to have a domino effect. What happens to what happens to you affects your children more than anything. If mom is happy, then the children are happy.
Right. They feel it. They know it.
It may take a while.
Now you're writing a book on this subject.
I am.
And the name of the book is?
The ABCs of Separation and Divorce.
The ABCs, and we go through the alphabet?
We go through the alphabet.
Starting with A, being anger?
Being anger and having a lot of anxiety. I mean, there's so many words that you have, and you get bewildered, and you're confused, and you're in denial, and you're envious, maybe, of your ex-husband's life. And you're fearful and frightful, and what are we at? G. I mean, there's just, you know, you're looking at the gravity of the situation. You feel helpless. You know, well, I can go through every letter.
Well, I want to know what
I
Z
think
is.
Z is there. I think at that point we have to zero in on on the new life, which is when I talk about going through the letters of the alphabet again, so that you can see the other side. and the positiveness of what will eventually happen. I mean, I could never have written this 10 or 15 years ago, but I've been divorced a very long time, and my children were very young, and now I have grandchildren. And it's a process. So you're constantly going through the process of divorce.
Now, in the women that you do speak to, do any of them say they want to get remarried?
No, not at, at the stages that we're speaking with the women, they're not thinking about getting married. They're thinking about, how do I wake up tomorrow to face what I'm going through? And you learn from everybody that you speak with, and you learn how different everybody's pain is, and for the reasons that they're going through their pain. They may have been married 2 years, they may have been married 20 or 30, or now, as we were talking earlier, 40 and 45 years is becoming the norm for a lot of people, and there's a lot of different attachments to each age group.
Right. There are different issues, involved with each.
Many different issues.
Right. Now, you also lead a support group through the Westchester Self-Help Clearinghouse.
Yes.
And that's also a separated divorce?
Separate and divorce group. And we're going to be starting up again in the fall.
Perhaps you'd like to give our viewers the phone. You are in the directory, but perhaps you'd like to give our viewers the phone number where you can be reached.
Sure. If anyone would like to contact me, I'm at 668-1428. I'm starting out the group again in the fall, and we're going to be starting out meeting at my home. I like the intimacy of it, and I'm centrally located to come from Yonkers and Upper County and
so
Down County.
Where are you?
I'm in Mount Vernon.
You're in Mount Vernon.
And again, my number is 668-1428.
Let's get back to Karen. And I would like to know how you make that match. When someone calls on the phone, before someone makes a phone call, they're pretty desperate. And when they do call and probably start crying, and
usually, or
often, how do you know who's good for whom? How do you know that Shirley might be good for one new widow that might call?
Well, Shirley's good for everybody.
She's good for everyone. She'll keep you very busy.
Shirley was recently inducted, I must tell you, into the Senior Citizen Hall of Fame.
You're a senior citizen?
Oh, yes.
But when I talk to somebody who calls and they start to tell me about their situation and what they're going through and some of the specifics, and if they have children, how old they are and where they live, and in the case of separation, who initiated it, I try to get as much of the sense of this person as I can in what may be a rather brief phone conversation, and to connect them with a volunteer who is in their age range, who is in, if they have children, who has children as well, who lives not too far away, and a sense of the personalities involved. I try. It's not always easy, but I
try to make good matches.
I try. And I think the majority of times we succeed. But the important thing is, again, that when somebody talks to somebody who understands and who listens and who supports, that's really what's crucial. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you hear someone telling you something that you just know is outrageous, or just, just the wrong thing to do? Do you always refrain from?
Yeah, that's very hard. It's really hard to say that this isn't the time to do that, but you don't.
You really keep that self-control.
You have to.
I encourage the volunteers to call me and let me know if something is going on that is really serious in terms of alcoholism,
Substance abuse.
substance abuse, not caring properly for their children, and then we, try to help the person get connected.
What's the age range of the women you've spoken to over the years?
Mostly seniors, but there have been women in their 40s and women with young children.
Right. Because the issues, of course, are very, very different. I mean, the pain is the same.
Absolutely.
But the issues surrounding a death of someone young is very different from someone in their 80s, for example.
And someone who has children, young children.
Yes.
And people who have people around who care for them. If they're not alone, if their health is good. Those are all factors in when you listen to someone.
Well, let's see. Roberta, I think I would like to talk next a little bit about how long you think, in your opinion, writing the book and being a phone buddy volunteer for so long, how long does it take to recover from a separation, divorce? A ballpark. I'm not pinning you down, but just a ballpark. After X number of years, like we talked about with being widowed, there is no time period for grieving. Some people in Europe wear black for the rest of their lives, all right? And that's it for them.
I don't know if recovery.
When do you know when it's no longer normal,
Well, I've always said that after you're divorced, you go through a series of firsts. And those firsts could be real killers for you. The first time you're sleeping alone. The first time you see your ex-husband perhaps with someone else, or you hear perhaps that he's seeing someone else, and you've been married for a very long time. There are a lot of first experiences that are going to happen. You come home at night and you eat alone. And what I hear from a lot of women, especially if they've been married for a long time and all of a sudden they're empty nesters and they're alone, it's a really hard time. Because they come home from work perhaps, or they've been busy all day long, but dinner time, when their spouse was there, even if they weren't getting along all that well,
it was a body.
It's a body. And that's a real thing that happens. So the first times that you're eating alone, the first times you're not having holidays together, the first times that your children have to go to, your ex-husband's family, and you're trying to create a new life, a different life. You're still a family, but you want to create. So I think that recovery is a difficult word. It's how do you go through the processes and grow and be able to cope with all of the different times and the aspects. I don't think that we really ever recover from a divorce. We don't ever set out to wanting to be divorced when we get married. It's not something that you do in your vows. It's not something that people aspire. It's a failure of sorts in a lot of ways. So I don't think that you recover from it. I think that you just move along and you grow and you learn.
Well, certainly, reading the papers, it's 60% of the population that gets married is going to get divorced. So we all know someone or several someones who have been there or are going through it now. It never makes it easier when it's you that it's happening to. And a statistic is 60%, just like with widows.
It's 100%.
It's 100%. That's
Can
right.
we give the phone number?
Yes,
that
please.
people
Let's do that. If someone would like to become a phone buddy, or someone is in need of a phone buddy, please call.
Please call me, Karen Schweitzer, at 761-0600, and I'm at extension 314. And I would be most pleased to hear from people either who would like to be connected or who would like to join us as a volunteer.
Well, it's certainly, I have been connected to the telephone support network myself, and it's very, very helpful to have someone listen to you who was not related to you and is not your friend who thinks you're the best thing in the entire world. And it's very one-sided for sure. So I certainly recommend a phone buddy system. Now, we're wrapping up. We've just got a couple minutes left. Anybody have anything that they would like to add? Would you like to repeat the number? Roberta, would you like to name your book again?
Oh, well, The ABCs of Separation and Divorce, and my phone number if anyone would like to join the group. And I hope that take advantage and meet other women. This is a very positive group, a very wonderful positive group.
How many are in the group at the
About
moment?
9. And
Meets monthly?
no, I like to have continuity in the groups, so we meet weekly.
Weekly, okay.
Yeah, I think that that's really important because most women are coming in the throes of the crisis,
Right.
and that's when the support is most needed, and that's when you can make a lot of connections with other women
Right.
who, you know, perhaps you can become friends with, and
Go to the movies
you
with.
can do the simple things in life and go to the movies, even if it is on a Saturday night and you don't have a date.
Give another phone number so that
668-1428.
I'd like to thank you all very, very much for coming down here today.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening, and goodbye from WJCS, The Ways We Care.